I have got a horrible feeling that when we were discussing the necessity of military aid, earlier this week or at the end of last week, or increased spending on the military budget, on the day that we tried to work out what was going on in the army, I've got a horrible feeling I gave the full hairdryer treatment to someone who texted in and said, let's take the money from foreign aid. I think I may even have reached for the scissors line. You remember the scissors line? Someone sends me something I consider to be stupid. I put them in idiot's corner and tell them to stay away from scissors. And then, of course, the Prime Minister comes out and increases defence spending by cutting foreign aid. So, very briefly, in fact, I'll take it till 10:10 this morning. Keith, set the clock. I'm putting myself in idiot's corner this morning for dismissing that in such an arrogant and unpleasant fashion. And that's a genuine apology, by the way, because if you had stopped to think about things, the shift from soft power to hard power would have made an awful lot of sense. A quick defence, am I allowed a few words of defence? The reason why I am relatively dismissive of that suggestion in almost all other contexts is because it is a tiny proportion of our budget that polling shows almost everybody believes to be much, much higher, largely because of the effort that hideous organisations like the Daily Mail put into trying to persuade you that the Ethiopian Spice Girls are a force for evil and wrongness, and all the other, we're giving mobile phones to people in, I think Elon Musk did it last week, didn't he, with condoms in Gaza, which was not even Gaza. It was a province called Gaza in an entirely different country where they're trying to cut the spread of HIV. But the facts never got in the way of the feelings when it came to foreign aid. So whenever people said, we could pay for it by cutting foreign aid, it was a bit like when my kids were young and sometimes they'd spend their birthday money and then ask if they could spend it again. I hadn't quite grasped the concept of cash at that point, and so it is with lazy right-wing rhetoric regarding foreign aid, but even a stopped clock is right twice a day. And albeit that it's a relatively tiny proportion of our national expenditure, it is a big enough proportion of our national expenditure to have a little bit sliced off the top and pushed instead into the defence budget, into the military budget. And I'm interested, as always, in what this actually means. And I don't know that you can answer that question without having a slightly better understanding of what the difference is between hard power and soft power. We're fairly clear on what hard power is. Hard power, in its simplest terms, is guns and troops, or planes and flyers, or boats and sailors. It is the bodies and the... I never know if ordnance is the right word to use, and I often say it wrong as well. God, I'm very Catholic with a big C this morning, aren't I? It's almost in hair shirt territory. I'm apologising for everything. But ordnance is one of those words I know I often get wrong, and I may have just got it wrong again. What's a less pretentious word than ordnance for describing the stuff that you spend military budgets on that isn't actually the wages of the military? I can't just say, guys, is there another better word? I don't know. But I know what hard power is. Hard power is bodies and I nearly said bangs. Does bangs work? Bangs doesn't work. Bodies and equipment. It's a boat equipment. But yeah, right, stop it. You understand, okay? You understand. 10 minutes after 10 is the time. So I know what hard power is. And I know that the decision by Sir Keir Starmer to move money from foreign aid to military spending will not be unpopular. You will find, of course, people who work for agencies or people who are deeply committed to the relative causes. I know that they will be very upset, and I mean, rightly so. It's a bit like Elon Musk taking money away from the poorest children on the planet in order to further enrich the richest adults, which is kind of what's happened with foreign aid cuts in the United States. But the notion of soft power is one that we've never explored together before. My friend Nick suggests the words materiel with an E, which I hadn't come across before. It's even got an accent over the first E, so it's materiel. Materiel? Materiel. Do you know that word? What are you nodding for? You've never heard that word before. Have you? Really? No. It's 12 minutes after 10. So it's personnel and materiel. That's hard power, right? What's soft power? 0345 6060 973. What is soft power? I would like you to tell me. I really would. And I don't know who's going to be best qualified to contribute to this. And so I'm going to suggest everybody is. I don't know why that hideous Daily Mail campaign about the Ethiopian Spice Girls hit so hard with me, because I think because I probably fell for it a bit at the time, and then I looked into it, and I couldn't believe the scale of the misrepresentation, because it worked so well. Guy, you're struggling to pay your mortgage this month, aren't you? And do you know what they're doing? Do you know what the British government is doing? It's giving millions of pounds to the Ethiopian Spice Girls. If they said giving millions of pounds designed to cut the likelihood of HIV spreading, cut the likelihood of people becoming refugees, cut the likelihood of domestic violence, forced marriage, all of these things that we consider to be our moral mission in the term of Western values. What is soft power and foreign aid if not an attempt to spread Western values, which we consider to be the best in the world? Remember, Kemi Badenoch has told you that some cultures are better than others. So what do you do if you're lucky enough to be a member of the best cultures? Well, you become a missionary, and you try to improve the lot of the people unlucky enough to live under the poorer cultures. That's what I would have thought that's what you do. I suppose you could just build a wall instead. That's an interesting phrase. Sounds strangely familiar. So you've got this concept of soft power and a slight lack, perhaps, of what it actually is. So let's have a little listen to the Defence Secretary John Healy. He's having quite a good, I don't want to say he's having a good war. I always find that phrase a little bit grim, actually. It's an accepted phrase, but he's having a good run, isn't he? I think John Healy seems to be one of the best performers in Keir Starmer's cabinet. And here he is. Just a little clip of what we're talking about in a conversation he had on the breakfast show this morning.
That switch of over £6 billion in 2 years' time from the aid budget to the defence budget is recognising that this is a world in which hard power is more necessary than soft power now.
Hard power is more necessary than soft power now. So I've got two questions for you. The first is he right? Is hard power? I mean, is it either or? I know it's a very, very small club, but I would pay a little bit more income tax to improve military spending. And someone suggested earlier in the week, it's amazing how quickly the news moves at the moment. Events, dear boy, events. Someone suggested earlier this week that most of us probably would. I don't think that's true. I think the historical problem is persuading people who don't feel under threat to pay more money to fight threats. But personally, I think I would. I've always had a strange soft spot for the military, and perhaps it's not that strange after all. But that's not going to land. Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have committed themselves to no tax rises, so they can't raise the money from taxation. Very hard to see when you look at the pie chart on the HMRC website. When you look at the pie chart of where our money goes, that one of the smallest slices is foreign aid. But that's where they've taken it from. Politically, if they'd announced that they were taking it from anywhere else, one of the bigger slices, pensions, NHS, welfare, maybe welfare. I wouldn't be surprised if I think she probably already has started claiming we could take it from the welfare budget without actually explaining how or who. But foreign aid's easy. Out of sight, out of mind. Is it true that now is a time for prioritising hard power over soft power? 0345 6060 973. And more importantly, and I think more easily answered, what do you understand soft power to be? If you've worked in the charity sector, if you've done any overseas, either volunteering or paid work, NGOs, charity, what is soft power? And how important is it? 0345 6060 973. Don't hold back on this one by thinking, he'll already know this. I want everything. Because it is one of those phrases that has suddenly become ubiquitous without anybody actually stopping to tell us what it means. So there is an element of not needing to tell us what it means because we have an idea, but we don't have knowledge. We don't have full knowledge. We don't have examples. We don't have detail. We don't have proper evidence of what it actually is and what we might be sacrificing at the altar of necessary increases in military spending. What to you does soft power mean, and have you ever seen it in action?